The story of the fall of humanity is a familiar tale in Christian theology. But beyond its spiritual lessons, it carries profound insights into the systems that shape our world today. In this video, we'll explore how the symbols of the serpent and nakedness in Genesis 3 reveal deep truths about power, corruption, and ethical leadership. In Genesis 3, we meet the serpent, a creature that represents more than just temptation. It embodies deception, manipulation, and the forces of evil that seek to undermine God's plan. Politically speaking, the serpent can be seen as a metaphor for corrupt leaders, those who deceive and manipulate to gain power. Think of politicians who use persuasive rhetoric to mislead the public, or those who exploit divisions within society to create conflict and push their own agendas. Just like the serpent tempted Eve with false promises, these leaders often promise paradise. But in the end, their manipulation leads to division and distrust. It's the kind of political corruption that prioritizes personal gain over the good of the people. Genesis 3 also teaches us about the fallibility of humanity. The fall is a stark reminder that all of us are susceptible to wrongdoing, greed, and corruption, especially those in power. This human frailty leads to political corruption and dysfunctional governance. When leaders fall victim to their own temptations, whether it's greed, power, or self-interest, the result is often a broken system that can no longer meet the needs of its citizens. Now let's talk about nakedness. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed, a symbol of their innocence and harmony with God. But after the fall, they became aware of their nakedness, and this awareness represents something deeper than just physical exposure. After disobeying God, Adam and Eve's awareness of their nakedness represents their loss of innocence. It symbolizes the human condition after misdeed, vulnerable, exposed, and separated from God. In a political sense, this nakedness can be seen as the vulnerability of citizens in a broken system, particularly the marginalized and those without power. They're exposed to exploitation and manipulation because political systems fail to protect them. Just as Adam and Eve were vulnerable after their fall, so too are societies vulnerable to exploitation when the political system is corrupted. Inequality, injustice, and the abuse of power leave people exposed and defenseless. The serpent's temptation isn't just political, it's also financial. The fall of humanity mirrors the rise of materialism. Eve's desire for the fruit, driven by the promise of knowledge and power, parallels the lure of material wealth and status that we face today. In modern terms, the serpent represents the allure of excessive consumption, the temptation of more. This leads to overconsumption, waste, and the degradation of the environment. Just like Eve's desire for more led to her downfall, our desire for more stuff can lead to personal and societal instability. This materialism can also lead to reckless financial behavior, like corporate greed and unsustainable practices. Hence, when businesses and governments chase profits without regard for ethical considerations, they sow the seeds for economic collapse and environmental ruin. However, Genesis 3 also offers a lesson in responsibility. The fall shows us the dangers of unchecked actions and the need for accountability. Just as Adam and Eve were held accountable for their actions, businesses and governments must be held accountable for their decisions. Strong regulations are needed to prevent unethical behavior, protect consumers, and ensure that businesses act responsibly and sustainably. Ethical leadership in both politics and business is essential. The fall teaches us that the consequences of greed, dishonesty, and exploitation are far-reaching, and it calls for a return to integrity, fairness, and responsibility. By understanding these symbolic lessons from Genesis 3, we can reflect on the systems we live in, whether political, financial, or social, and ask ourselves how we can promote justice, integrity, and accountability in the world around us. So, whenever you think about the fall of humanity, remember, it's not just a story about the past, it's a story that speaks to the societal realities of today. The serpent's deception and the consequences of the fall still echo in our world, urging us to examine the systems we support and the choices we make.